Hey everyone, back again with another episode of My Computer Addiction. That's right, I'm feeding the addiction by working on this machine once again. I wasn't too happy with the Socket 7 machine that was in here. It's an interesting board, but I figured we could do a bit more with this machine. So I've ordered some parts. They've turned up. I'm going to fit them, and we're going to have a look over and see what I'm planning, and go from there really. Just a quick recap, this machine is a early Socket 7 motherboard, sorry, early AGP Socket 7 machine. It's not a super Socket 7, tongue twister, but it's, you know, got some early adoption there, and it's really annoying to work with, really unstable. But yeah, it does support a variety of AMD K6 CPUs, so chances are I'll throw one of those in this motherboard at a later point. But yeah, I figured the case is still good, all the other components that I put together are still fine, so I never got the stability worked out, so I figured why not explore something a little bit different for the case. It is a baby AT case, so we are limited to what we can put in here, but I figured why not pick out some parts. They arrived eventually after a month or two, and yeah, try it out and see what we find. Alright, well the very first part that I'm going to put in this machine is not very exciting, but it is a fan. And the reason I've got this is, you may remember from my last video on this machine, the power supply fan is really loud. Yeah, that's not the hard drive, it is just the fan and the power supply. The bearings are all shot. So I've got this, it was cheap, and we're going to fit that in. Next part I have, which I didn't order but I really want to use, is this Riva TNT2. It's from year 2000, and I think this will be very fitting for the parts that I have coming up that I want to put in this machine, just because it suits the time period. The card still works fine, it's 32 megabytes of memory on board. Might give you a bit of a clue, but the next part here that I want to put in is this Pentium 2. That's 350 megahertz. It's actually 100 megahertz front side bus, which is actually quite nice to have on a machine like this. It's the maximum for the board that I want to be putting in this machine. Sorry, for the front side bus wise, so very nice CPU to have. I've just had the spare from actually my main vintage gaming rig, which one day I'll do a video on. And of course, the main star of the show, I ordered this thing in. It came from the Ukraine. Took a few months to arrive, but it's finally here, and I actually had to hunt quite a while, and you know, do a lot of research to pick out a motherboard. It's a baby AT motherboard. It's a GA-B6A, I believe, from Gigabyte, and it's a 440BX, not an EX or LX motherboard that supports the slot 1 Pentium 2 and Pentium 3, and has its AT form factor. But yeah, really hard to find these in the 440BX chipset. A lot of them are different, and also a name brand. Due to COVID, I couldn't get an Asus one I was looking at. But yeah, you can still find all this stuff on Gigabyte's website for this board. And it came with the PS2 header, which is really important because not having that is really annoying. It's really good to have that PS2 header just for the mouse. As I said, ordering that separately is normally not a good option. They're quite expensive. But yeah, it's got AGP 2x support. I'm not sure if that's 4x, I think it's just 2. PCI and ISA, 4 RAM slots, onboard IDE, a nice few options, USB, and that little blue thing on the right is the CPU's dip switch. But yeah, let's put it in the case, which sadly I've spent ages putting together, and give it a run. Right, okay. So first things first, I'm going to take care of something that I've been desperately wanting to do, and that is replace the fan in the power supply, which is really, really noisy. So basically we're going to open up the machine and swap the fan out. I was hoping I wouldn't have to take the power supply. Ugh. There you go. Struggle. I was hoping I wouldn't have to take the power supply all the way out, but looks like to actually take the screws out of the fan. I will. So what I'm thinking of doing is just removing the 4 screws at the back, and then just sort of picking it up and turning it, and work at it on here. Mainly because I don't want to remove the front to remove the switch, because that's really annoying. Alright, start by removing some of these modifications that I made. Man, these things are so sharp. I think this guy sits on a shelf, so it's pretty easy to get it out. Push it back, up it comes, turn it around. Nice. That's what I was looking for. Sorry about all the exposure changes. This I don't actually have any like good lighting. I've got the horrible house lights which operate at that frequency, which makes everything flicker. You've probably seen it, well, now or in my videos, but yeah. I'm just taking the fan screws out now while the lid's on, so I can safely get my hand on top of the power supply, and given it's just plastic in there, you know, there's nothing going to short out while I'm doing this, so cool. And we'll do the top screws. That's all done, and the lid should just come right off. Well, sadly I was a bit of a muppet and I actually forgot to hit record on removing the fan, but it's pretty simple. It's the same process as I did with when I initially took the machine apart for cleaning. It just unplugs and unscrews like that, and out it comes. Really nice, and it's on a little cable. So I think at this point what I'm going to do is just fit this Silverstone fan. It's the same dimensions and voltage, thankfully. I'm just going to cut the plug off the end of the donor fan, the new one, and we'll solder on just the wires, so pretty easy. Thankfully I don't have to desolder anything from the power supply, so I'll just sort of measure everything out and get to work really. It should be an easy swap, fingers crossed. Okay. What I'm going to do first is just sort of measure the length that I need. Roughly about there. And let's just cut the wires. Next thing I'm going to do is try and push this as far back as it will go. And snip that. And I'm going to keep its little heat shrink thing. I might have to trim this down. Hopefully not. I think that's just enough to work with. Okay. What we'll do is we'll start by pre-tinning the wires. I'm not going to go too ham on this thing. You know, they're only small gauge. Come on, there we go. no idea what my temperature's set at. 400 degrees, probably a bit too hot, but it'll work. Oh, it's ugly. Cool, that's all done. Might trim this guy down just a little. Let's start by putting my heat shrink tubing on there. Very important to do that while you remember. Been there many times where I've forgotten. Okay, that one's done. These helping hands are really good, but they, boy do they clamp onto the thin gauge wire. Messes up the insulation a little, which I don't like, but you know what, it works, so I'm not going to complain. I could put some little rubber things in between the teeth to stop them doing that. Maybe some heat shrink. That's it, we can put the fan now back into the computer. Okay, so I've orientated the fan and I've put some little zip ties in here just to hold the wiring. They're quite loose, just so everything can move and it's not being pinched. I'm just doing that just because I want to make sure that everything's good. I'm not gonna short or touch out on anything. I'm just using the same direction as the last one, which is the flow facing outwards. I'm just going to use the same screws as well, just because I don't sometimes trust the ones that come with the fan kits. They can be alright, you know, I mean they are what they are, but yeah. Trying to do opposite sides, which will help line the holes up so you can get the screws in. Turn this around so you guys can see, but fan is in, it's secure, and more importantly safe. So let's plug it in. This is how it originally was routed, so I'm going to just sort of follow that. It's got the plastic shielding over everything as well, so that's all good. Nothing's going to short out there or burn, so yeah, let's put the lid back on this and close it up and try it out. Well, sadly at this point it's pretty much just undoing all the hard work that I did in the previous episode of this machine, which is just removing everything from it. Thankfully, I did an alright job cable managing everything, so it's not a total disaster or dumpster fire. I was trying out some cards there. That was just a ATI something or other, just to see if I got any extra stability. The network card and the sound card I'll be putting back in the machine, just because they are useful. Well, it's moving on to undoing the spaghetti from the machine. All those ribbon cables get in the way, horrible things. Using the fancy pants, what is it called, the sliding tray for the motherboard here. I had to undo the connections for the motherboard for the power supply. I forgot to do that so the board didn't tilt out. But yeah, at this point, just sort of picking away at it. I'll front I/O first, and then I'll unscrew the motherboard. We need to fit some extra standoffs, of course, for the new motherboard. The memory, I ended up replacing that you'll see with some other DIMMs, just because I wanted a bit more capacity. But yeah, it came off really easily. I couldn't get the plastic standoffs out of the old board, but that's okay. Fitted some new standoffs for the motherboard, the new one, and my screwdriver rubber is disintegrating in my hands there. It's really gross and horrible, but it's nice and secure at least, so that's the name of the game really, not having it flop about. Okay. I'm not actually sure if any of these are grounded. Now we'll add some stuff onto it and prep it for the move into the case. Okay, so I've had a quick scope out with this motherboard, and it doesn't appear too bad, but the one thing I've noticed working on this particular case is that you can't get add a lot of these things in this corner when the board is in the case. So we're going to do things like put a new CMOS battery in here. This is just a cheap generic one, and when we plug in the when we fit the motherboard, we'll plug in the power connector for the motherboard. This stuff you can get at, the RAM slots you can kind of get at, although you can't fit them in, the RAM in and fit the motherboard in externally, and this has to stay shut, so the CPU can't go in either. So yeah, AT cases, again, always a challenge to work with sometimes. Probably helps if I get them in the right order, very important. Yeah, that one went on nicely. It's very important to make sure the memory sockets are fully down, otherwise they will break off as this slides over. Very gently. Just gonna fit up this locking screw to keep the motherboard from moving. I'll just go in handheld here, but yeah, you can get to the RAM, the IDE connectors, but behind there, it's really hard to see, is the AT power connector, and the CMOS battery of course is under here, so just easier to get to it without the board in place. But I think we'll work on getting the CPU and RAM fitted and IDE connections, and then I'll tackle the front I/O, which is always fun, and get some cards in it and give it a shot. Right, first thing I'm going to try and tackle is the memory. So I've got some RAM here. I didn't realise I had my autofocus on, but it may work, it may not, so I think we'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work, I have 3 sticks here to the side of various capacities which have worked in the last build that was in this machine, in this case, so let's give it a try. Thankfully slot 0 is this one here, so it's nice and easy to get at. The last time that RAM was used was in like an AMD Athlon sort of build, I think, or Duron, can't remember. I don't even know if it works, to be honest, but it's 256 megs, which is way more than what I actually need or want, but nevertheless. Now these, I've never used this before, so I'm hoping I don't break it. I think if I'm gentle, it should clip up, which it does. I'm going to fit this now so these don't get damaged. They've got some rigidity against them with the CPU card. I'll get the CPU locked in. Nice. Now the only downside is the power connector's all the way over here for the fans, so oh my goodness. I mean, it reaches, but only just, and you can't even see that It's a tight fit. I'm wondering if I can take the fan off and rotate it. Let me have a look and see if I can do that. Well, it looks like that only goes on one way. I mean, it's alright, it just looks crappy. Anyway, moving on. I think what we'll do is I'll kind of cut the camera and run some of these because this is going to take forever for me to do. And it looks like a mess. Basically, we got floppy, IDE1, IDE2. So, not too hard. And I've already preset my jumpers on the block. Okay, this is my sort of rough plan for this. This is the CD-ROM ribbon cable, and I'm thinking of just routing this one through there. It'll be really hard to see, but then basically I'm just going to get it here and then just plug it in. I think it is orientated around the correct way to do that. So, you know what, let's just plug that guy in now. The top of it is missing, I have noticed, but it is holding together, so as long as I don't put too much pretension on that, it should be good. Floppy disk one's going to be harder. It's going to go for a very, very small hole, I think, through here. Like, right back through there. There is a small gap which it can fit through behind the power connector. Alright, this is what I managed to come up with for the IDE cables. Sort of the front I/O to do, but I managed to sort of route them around the back, and then of course around the back is not the prettiest, but I mean it works. So this is the CD-ROM one, the floppy disk drive, and the hard drive slash zip drive. So yeah, I managed to get it all sort of there and flattish. I've put a bit of Velcro around this center part, so just to provide a bit of strain relief for this black IDE cable. But yeah, I mean, considering how IDE cables usually go, this one actually turned out to be pretty good. So we'll carry on. I think it's time we fit a card and test the machine out. I'm going to go with the Riva TNT2 here, because I do know it does work, so good, you know, good card for testing. Alright, ready for testing. We have our CPU, graphics card, RAM, power's all connected correctly. Double checking the black on black, yep. Cool. All we need to do now is plug it in and see if it works. Alright, power it up, see what it does. Alright, 350 megahertz. Oh, okay, I was not expecting it just to do that. Okay, that's a good start. We'll carry on putting the machine together. Might give this thing a turn around so you can see how we're looking. Nice and complete back there. Looking all right there, look great. But yeah, everything's connected and we're ready to set the machine up and try it out. Well, thankfully for the final power on test, we didn't get any smoke, which is really good. So yeah, we'll just fire the machine up and the fan sounds so much quieter. Yeah, really happy with that. You just hear the noise of the hard drive spinning. That's quite a noisy drive. I think it's a Maxtor 10GB drive. But yeah, of course, struggling with the case lid as always. These things, when they get bent, they never go on properly. You do see some raster or gel bars in the background. I think this might be, I didn't see it on my monitor, it might be my capture card, but then again there is some other interference I've noticed. My preference of course is copying the Windows 98 setup files from the CD to the hard drive for faster installation, and also when it asks for the CD you don't have to go hunting for that. But you do see some more wiggly gel bars here in the background, and I'm wondering if that is just capacitors, because the board is old and the power supply is old. The graphics card of course is old, so you never know, but Windows here you don't actually see it, so, and of course my capture card's more sensitive to those sort of things. But yeah, other than that we're just installing the programs that I need. Of course the Ultimate Service Pack needs to go on there. Cleaning up all the crap that Windows puts on there from the setup. I really should do an unintended install or some sort of imaging thing for these installs. And Phil's Computer Lab had a really good video on using Audigy 2 or 1 drivers for Sound Blaster Live cards, so I'll link that in the description because that was a lifesaver. Thanks Phil, shout out. But yeah, makes it really easy, and I've got a fancy theme. But yeah, at this point really the install's all done. I just sort of blew through it, and we're going to check out the games because I really like having this sort of package together with the CPU and video card. So we'll go through it and see what's what. Yeah, I'm not the greatest there with Quake 3, but I really wanted to try out some Porsche Unleashed, but sadly when I launched the game, this is all I got. And I'm wondering if it's just more an incompatibility with the Reva TNT2 or the version of DirectX. I'm not too sure, this game can be a little bit picky, so I'll have to work that one out later. But yeah, of course got some Unreal Tournament is another good one. I'm trying to pick sort of games that this machine might be able to play, even though this is probably a bit far out of its wheelhouse.
Double kill. Congratulations, you are the winner.
when I start doing these builds, I want to start featuring some more various games. This one's called Deep Red. It's a DOS game from 1996. It's a Spanish game, actually, or Spanish developer. It's a side-scroll platformer thing, Commander Keen, Biomenace sort of type thing, but sort of feels like it's inspired a bit like RoboCop, but yeah, the controls are pretty snappy. Gameplay I didn't find too engaging. It does have sound, although I could only get the PC speaker to work, even though it would test, show it was all working. It just for some reason wouldn't work through the Sound Blaster compatibility. But yeah, I'll put a link in the description to this if anyone's interested. It might be worth checking out and having a quick little go at it, gameplay. But yeah, I think I still prefer like Biomenace, of course, and stuff like that. But always good to check something new out and give it a go. Well, lastly, I have this part kicking around. It actually came out of my normal gaming rig. It's a GeForce 2 MX2, I think it is, 32 megabytes, the same as a Riva TNT2. But I want to put it in and see what extra performance I get from it. I know I'm a bit limited by the CPU speed. But you know, it's always good to check it out. And I didn't do any like extensive benchmarking or anything. I just ran Unreal Tournament again, and we do see a extra FPS boost, which is quite good. So yeah, check it out and see what we've got. Yeah, it's always nice getting a bit of FPS boost. Sadly, Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed still won't load properly, so I think there's some sort of incompatibility there, but yeah, I had a lot of fun putting this machine together, and I really like the form factor, the fact it's a 440BX compatible motherboard inside that small case and form factor. Definitely room for some upgrades. I'm quite interested to try and throw some more parts into this and see what I can do with it. I'm thinking I might recap the power supply on board though and see if I can get rid of some of that gel barring, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Just another fun, relaxing build. It's always fun putting these together. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys soon, very shortly. Alright, see you guys.